Okay, so this is referring to Consolmagno SJ. He's a priest who mentions his Boscovich. Going to this link, then I'll be referring to this one, then I'll be going to the talk. So, not that, wrong place. There we go. Consolmagno. There he is. He is an American research astronomer and planetary scientist at the Vatican Observatory, and he's got his what's it called, dog collar on. So he's a priest and a scientist. So yes, you might know him from this little article that say things like this. This is at the Religion News Service, and there he is. In this little article it says, "Meet the Pope's astronomer who says he would baptise an alien and give him the chance." Okay. It says there, he's an astronomer, a planetary scientist for the Vatican Observatory. He specialises in asteroids and meteorites. Right. And going down here, this is where he's giving this little talk. So going to that. There. So he's given a talk on the Galileo affair, and unfortunately you can't really see the slides very well, but you get a general idea of this, what he says. And he's talking about what happened with the Galileo going before the Inquisition, and he mentions Boscovich a few times. So if you want to see the full thing you can, but I'm only pointing out the bits about Boscovich, so we'll pick up the bits about Boscovich. Here we go.
Description of things through a telescope. And it's kind of a long timeline, so I put it into a little bit of a scroll here, but follow carefully.
There he is, there down there, hidden away.
The good things are in blue, the bad things are in red.
Let's talk about the slides, you can't really see it.
And the nasties and the defenses are pretty much evenly spread out. 1615 is kind of a magic moment when he's accused of heresy and he's absolved.
Yeah. So that's Galileo being accused of heresy.
It's a great book. It starts out being written in the 20s. Wonderful blue, wonderful blue, wonderful blue, and suddenly there's a mass of red things that happen. All through 1633. Finally, he's sentenced, and then it ends up with a bunch of blue things again. All right, maybe a few of those went by too fast. So, it'll take a while because we finally it's finished. There we go. Let's take the key dates. We have the Copernicus book. Galileo already book about the telescope. The letter to the Grand Duchess Christina is a letter that he publishes privately. He doesn't actually publish it because this is where he gives his theology of how you reconcile his new science with religion. A point of view that actually is later endorsed by Pope Leo XIII. But he writes it as a private letter because he's not a licensed theologian and he can't publish theology without a license. Considering that publishing theology without a license leads to wars in this era, you can understand why people are leery to let this happen. But this is a letter that gets widely circulated and is very controversial. As a result of it, a group of people finally look at the Copernicus book and say, there are dangerous things in this Copernicus book. And so you know what the church orders?
So this is basically what's happening. Galileo has to try to reconcile Catholic religion with his scientific beliefs, and so he's not really allowed to publish on theology. So that's what he's referring to there. And then when he's talking about, Galileo's talking about his science, the priests then decide to look at what Copernicus is saying and decide all this dangerous things being said by Copernicus. So
Orders that Copernicus's book, if you've got a copy of Copernicus's book, this is what you must do. You must take that book and find the page and find the line where it says the earth moves around the sun. And you must cross out that line. And right in the margin, we can calculate by pretending the earth moves around the sun.
So that's what the Catholic Church wanted to do with the Copernican book. They wanted to edit it that way. They wanted to say you can pretend that the earth goes around the sun and do calculations from that way. That's the edit they wanted to do to it. So
And then go ahead, Nikki. Father Cambridge, a historian of science at Harvard, has looked at every extant copy of the first two editions of Copernicus's book. He describes this in a book called The Book Nobody Read. And he notes that the ruling that you have to cross this out only applied in Rome itself. The rest of Europe didn't have to follow it, and nobody outside Europe did this. The books that were held in Rome, only half of them are corrected. We at the Vatican Observatory have a third edition of Copernicus, dating from 1617, in our library. It's not corrected. He goes on trial when he writes another book defending Copernicus, and finally, after the trial, he writes his final book on new physics, which is probably the thing he's most famous for.
this is back to Galileo again. Galileo writes another science book after his trial.
Where he really introduces the idea of using mathematics in physics. Now, I put 2014 next to the book in the trial. Let's imagine that Galileo is on trial today. What year would it have been when the Copernicus book was said to be correct? 14 years ago. There's a 14-year gap between when the book is ordered to be corrected and when he writes a new book defending Copernicus. 4 more years before then, when there was this, Galileo called in development, and development says, okay, you're not a heretic, but stop pushing the Copernicus stuff. It's making you worse. And that was 5 years after his book first describing the telescope. And all of this is 90 years before the Copernicus book comes out. The first big point to mention is that Galileo was not some outsider who was stomped on the first time he tried to push Copernicanism. He was somebody who was talking about a theory that was almost 70 years old when he first mentions it, who makes a living selling books, including books that are approved by the church, and not just approved, but the official censors say, we in our era will be remembered because Galileo lived among us. Which is actually true. Why did it take 75 years before anybody found a theological problem with Copernicus? Why did Galileo get off the physical warning in 1616? Why did everything go wrong in 1632? And why did he write and publish his most important book after the trial? Those are great questions. I'm not sure that I have answers. I'll suggest a couple of them. But I do want to point out that there are a number of answers you'll find in the textbooks. It was a tragic conflict of worldviews. That's one of the official church lines.
So that's the mention of Boscovich. Boscovich introduced the atomic theory. If we wasn't quickly said it, go back again.
I do want to point out that there are a number of answers you'll find in the textbooks. There was a tragic conflict of worldviews. That's one of the official church lines when they reviewed Galileo in the 1990s. Lovely statement. I'm not quite sure what it means. You'll hear, the church is always afraid of new ideas. Actually, considering how long we lived with Copernicus, that alone I don't think really works. There's one theory that, he actually secretly believed in the atomic theory, and you can't make the atomic theory that everything's made out of atoms fit in with the theory of transubstantiation, and therefore he was considered a heretic. Well, considering that the atomic theory was actually proposed by a Jesuit priest 50 years later, and a guy named Boscovich.
Boscovich. Atomic theory from Boscovich. So, next place. Is it? Yeah, next place. Right. Get it a bit further there. There we go. So there's a lot more he says, but I'm only highlighting the Boscovich bit. So he's mentioned that atomic theory comes from Jesuit priest Boscovich, and he's a Jesuit priest as well. So these priests sort of do science.
If you look after 1633, there are a lot of books published in the North and the South, among Catholics, among Protestants, about whose system is right. It really isn't decided until Isaac Newton.
So this is they were discussing science and about what controversy which Galileo provoked, and then along comes Newton.
His laws of physics, which explain mathematically, and Galileo had something going, why the Keplerian ellipses, and it's Kepler after all, actually do a good job of describing the motions of planets. Newton shows that you get ellipses if you apply his laws of physics and his law of gravity.
So you've got Galileo, Copernicus, Kepler, and other people, and then Newton comes along, and he kind of brings things together a bit more, and it sort of like makes a bit more sense. You've got elliptical orbits and from Kepler and so forth.
At that point, you finally have a system that makes sense, and this is first published around 1680, but the final edition doesn't come out until 1730. So it's really about 100 years, 1726. It's nearly 100 years after Galileo before the scientific world finally gets it. This is probably right. And it was Roger Boscovich, the atomist guy, who finally convinces the church to say, look, let us teach it as the way things are, as philosophy. Because up until that time, all the schools were teaching the Copernican system as a mathematical way of calculating planets. Now they can teach it as a way of describing how the world actually works. So that you've got things like...
So there you get it. You just mentioned Boscovich, so I'll go back again to it. It was a bit quick. You got Newton, who's unifying things what Galileo, Copernicus and Kepler are saying into a bit more consistent theory. It makes sense in this book, famous book, the Principia and so forth. And then after him you have Boscovich, who convinces the Catholic Church to accept Newtonian physics. So we'll get over that bit again to highlight it.
Actually do a good job of describing the motions of You get ellipses if you apply his laws of physics and his law of gravity. At that point, you finally have a system that makes sense. And this was first published around 1680, but the final edition doesn't come out until 1730. So it's really about 100 years, 1726. It's really 100 years after Galileo before the scientific world finally gets it. Yeah, this is probably right. And it was Roger Boscovich, the animist guy, who finally convinces the church to say, look, let us teach it as the way things are, as philosophy. Because up until that time, all the schools were teaching the Copernican system as a mathematical way of calculating planets. Now they can teach it as a way of describing how the world actually works. So that you've got things like this painting, which appeared in 1760 on the ceiling of a college in Prague, and there are all these lovely angels looking through telescopes at stars, and every star is surrounded by planets and little comets.
So there you have it. Boscovich convinces the Catholic Church to go with Newtonian physics, and that's sort of the outcome of the Galileo affair. After Galileo, you had Newton come along and gave physics that made a bit more sense to people, and Boscovich got the Catholic Church to accept that sort of physics. And we also, he's mentioned earlier a bit that Boscovich gave atomic theory. So there's a lot of things on the internet about Boscovich. We go on to it here, this one here. So one of the sites on Boscovich. Boscovich is on the stamp, and various stamps and so forth. So what it says. Boscovich was born in what is now Dubrovnik, Croatia. We'll get down to the relevant bit. Boscovich was the first to work out a scientific approach to an atomic theory. So it's really the first scientific atomic theory. Widely recognised in his day, he received numerous honours and was elected to prestigious societies. He specialised in solar eclipses and designed the Brière Observatory in Italy and so forth. So basically what we have from Boscovich is the first atomic theory, scientific atomic theory. So why don't they mention that when I was when I was doing a physics degree? They didn't mention where the atomic physics theory is coming from, and it's this person on these stamps. It's Boscovich. They don't mention that, they just jump over it. Maybe part of the reason is because they don't really like to mention a Catholic priest doing physics. I mean, this person's doing physics, science, astronomy, and he's an astronomer, and as a priest he would baptise an alien and things like this. So maybe they don't want to go into details like that. So the atomic theory of modern physics comes from this person Boscovich on these stamps. So this is going onto my website. What I say on my website is the history of the unitary or unified field theory, UFT, is essentially Boscovich to Einstein to White to Boyansky. So the important bit I'm pointing at at the moment is you got Boscovich dealing with atomic theory, the first scientific atomic theory, and actually the way he was dealing with it was as a unified field theory. So you've got that, you've got the first unified field theory from Boscovich, and it's also, they don't want to mention that, they seem to jump over that at Physics University as well. So they seem to be concentrate too much on the things that Einstein did, and they sort of they miss out saying, oh, by the way, first atomic theory comes from Boscovich. They seem to miss that out. They don't credit where the physics history is coming from, and I think that's really a corruption of the education system, because if you sort of like saying, if you told the students about Boscovich, you would then say, well, why is all these changes that Einstein made? Why did Einstein change things from the way Boscovich was treating physics? What's all this? So in order to corrupt their education system, they miss out him. So that's basically where we go with that. And of course, as you go to my videos, I keep pointing out that Einstein has messed up physics. And so what's it got? I've got lots of these videos now, and sort of thing like Einstein messed up philosophy and physics. There's been a long legacy of dissent by scientists and so forth with Einstein's relativity, saying it's wrong, and there's confusion between what Einstein was saying when he was young and what he was saying when he was older. What's going on? He changes his mind. So this is basically what a lot of the problem is when they start teaching physics, they don't highlight this person, Boscovich. Get a picture of him here. They don't highlight a better picture. They don't highlight this person, and they just go straight on to Einstein. Try to miss at him, because that would cause controversy. You would sort of say, well, why is Einstein made all these changes? And from my point of view, I'd say all the changes Einstein's making, well, it's all mistakes. Lots of them. It's a great number of mistakes. So of course they will have to, as being fans of Einstein, as fans and believers in Einstein, they have to miss out things which would cause controversy in their education system. This is basically a problem. But people like this, they're not quite happy just to say about Boscovich. Thank you.